I love the robot slaves.
Robot helpers, robot assistants,
Robot assistants, much better term.
robot butlers, robot Alfreds. My robot's name is Alfred also. G'day everybody, and welcome to the panel where we look at the world through the frame of the comic book. My name is Jason Baddower. I'm a comic book artist for DC Comics, currently working on Joker Harley Malicious Intent. I'm also joined today by Marvel Living Library Scott Stuart. We're going to go through the best scenes from Superman and one that's the worst. Put your spoiler seatbelt on because we're going to go in and we're going to go through everything else. Please go see the movie. It is a ton of fun.
Take your children. It is a very child-friendly movie, unlike any Superman movie we've had since 1996.
Scene number one.
My scene is very trivial. I like the moment where he saves the squirrel. Just really demonstrated Clark's compassion and respect for all life. It wasn't formative in any way. It wasn't a sapiocentric thing. It showed he was genuinely compassionate about all living creatures, and they all mattered to him equally.
In Superman Birthright, Mark Waid actually made Superman vegetarian, and I do wonder if this Superman is actually vegetarian also. They say in films to not work with children or animals, but those are also the two things that create the greatest resonance. And James Gunn really used children and animals together in a really, really interesting way. And yes, the squirrel, which leads me to my favorite scene when he turned himself over to the DOJ to rescue Crypto. That wasn't even his dog, and Crypto was just constantly a bundle of trouble, but Superman was always there for him.
The dog is a ton of fun, steals so much of the movie. Clark turns himself over purely to help find his cousin's dog
that he doesn't even like. And it's really obvious he doesn't like the dog, that he also has issues with how the dog is not trained. Speaking of someone who has two semi-trained dogs, I couldn't expect anything more from Crypto myself.
But Superman for all creatures.
Scott, what did you actually think of Superman as a person?
I was taken aback a little bit because we actually got to see Superman on the screen for, as I said, the first time in nearly 30 years. He was such an exemplar of the sort of person you would want to be, totally concerned with others, with doing the right thing, with truth, justice, and all those good things. He was just a good person in every moment. Not always doing the right thing, being conflicted, a layered actual human. It was really good to see Superman on screen.
The big blue Boy Scout. One of the things that got me is I actually don't think Henry Cavill would have worked in this role. Henry Cavill is just too cool. And that's not this Superman. He was too goofy. He was just too uncool. This is a guy who is literally genuinely having trouble trying to figure out always the right thing to do. And that's very much one of the themes of the movie that I really enjoyed, because we as people always hopefully trying to do the right thing. I remember once you said, we all think of ourselves as good people. And someone who's really genuinely making that their mandate every day, I think is really inspiring, and not always doing the right thing, because the movie opens up immediately with him in hot water. And that leads to one of my favorite scenes of the movie, which is the Lois Lane scene, the interview that Clark gives as Superman to Lois. And I felt very seen, because it's one of the things that's, if I was talking to my wife and I'd be like, oh no, honey, I'm very media trained. Then she'd sit me down and go, all right, let me just break you down, and literally break you down. And seeing Lois do that was really, really great with Superman. Just realize how far this guy is out of water and that the world is a complicated place.
Rachel Brosnahan was a light in the movie. She was great as Lois. She really went out of her way to do the right thing herself in a lot of situations. She was conflicted about the relationship. For those who haven't seen it, it picks up like in media res. This isn't an origin story. Superman's been out to the world for about 3 years. So, we're in the middle of the Superman mythos. They had developed a rapport and a relationship. And even when she wasn't sure about the relationship, she was sure Clark was good and wanted to do right by him.
I really struggled to come up with the greatest action scene in Superman, because I felt all of them were of just such an equal high caliber.
We had cities crumbling, but they took the time to show people helping each other out of the way, to show Superman reacting and saving people from this calamity rather than just watching it happen or being dragged through it by the villain.
And checking in on them too. Take some deep breaths, checking around, is everybody okay? Like, just knowing that there's more than just being physically okay. Sometimes you need a little moment of comfort also. And one of my favorite things about them is I genuinely felt like Superman was in trouble every single action scene. And not necessarily for his own safety, sometimes for the safety of a little green baby, or just trying to rescue the people around him, trying to do as little property damage or save as many lives as possible, trying to find the most humane solution to things, but also win the desperate fight with the engineer and Ultraman, where he's being wailed on. And I'm like, I do not know how he's gonna get out of this. It was also just wonderful seeing the full gamut of his powers. There is something elemental to Superman. He is the fire in his eyes, he is the water in his icy breath, he is the earth in his strength and his durability, and the air in his ability to fly. We pretty much got to see the entire gamut of his powers, and every time I always felt like he was in trouble. There was not a point that I ever felt there was no jeopardy there, and I really enjoyed that.
It's hard to create real jeopardy for a character like Superman, who is fantastically powered. But they did. And it wasn't just through kryptonite machinations. It was emotional jeopardy as much as it was physical jeopardy. And for all of the smarks out there who think you can't tell good Superman stories, you can, because he is the most vulnerable person to emotional jeopardy.
And he had to rely on so many people, his allies, as well as Krypto, so many times to get help.
Gunn did a great job juggling a lot of masters. I really appreciated how it did start in media res. This was a full DC universe put on screen with supporting the heroic characters, established relationships between the supporting cast, who all got their moments. I think Jimmy Olsen was a little undersold, but he certainly had his moments to contribute to the story, the plot, and to the characters and show his value in the scenario. Plus the Justice Gang, which was one of my favorite gags in the movie. It was a real lived-in DC universe and a marvelous starting point, which, thanks to Marvel having done nearly 2 decades of heavy lifting now, we don't need to hold the audience's hand the whole way. This is just how it is. And so much more effective than how they handled it in earlier iterations.
When Zack Snyder was asked to create the DC Extended Universe, everyone said to him, you can't put all these superheroes into the one movie, because you remember from BVS that he's just started cramming everybody into that movie. But James Gunn put so many more heroes into this movie, and yet none of them felt crammed enough. They all had a great moment, had a purpose, had a place to be.
He used the archetypes of the superhero really well. We didn't need a 10-minute video package to tell us about Hawkgirl. She just flew in and hit people with her mace. And Guy Gardner flew in and made glowing green middle fingers come out of the earth. And just these quick beats that told us about these characters very quickly and let the archetypes carry the weight without getting bogged down in minutiae.
And speaking of that, one of my other favorite scenes of the movie is Supergirl's cameo, which I really enjoyed, because I always wonder, when you have 2 characters with exactly the same power sets that traditionally, up until recently, and I'm very much thinking of the Tom King, Bill Quasevely story, very, very similar characters. And you really couldn't tell the difference except for one wore a skirt. And what they've managed to do immediately is create, okay, there's not only an age gap, there is a difference between the two, there's a values gap difference between the two, and it looks like that she's going to be more cosmic-based, whereas he stays on Earth more, differentiating these two and allowing this set of superpowers to travel around through 2 different stories. I think it was really, really masterfully good decision-making. Talk to me about Lex Luthor.
This is the most interesting Lex we've gotten for 50 years. This is a Lex that we recognize from the world around us, but a Lex who is unapologetically villainous and self-obsessed in every decision, every action, every tantrum and emotional outburst. Every time he just casually dismisses or manipulates or just F's with his underlings for sport. It doesn't even make him feel better. He just does it. Holt was a real revelation as Lex Luthor, and the most post-crisis comics accurate Lex Luthor that I think there's ever been.
To your point, what the cultural consciousness understands of Lex Luthor, taking those beats and absolutely executing on them in a way that I think made them feel realized and believable. The back-to-back soliloquies, like, you get why he hates Superman. And I love the fact that by having a Lex Luthor who is experienced with Superman allows Lex to rise to the occasion to become a formidable foe for Superman. He's been working on this plan for 3 years to take him down, and we come in at that moment. And I think, again, just incredible timing on Gunn's part.
And it's not just Superman that takes Lex down. It's the whole Daily Planet team with the backup of the Justice Gang staving off the second half of his plan. Superman isn't all powerful in a vacuum. He's part of a society. He is the best of us, but still part of us.
And using all those three parts of Superman, Superman himself and his direct superpowers, his relationships with the Daily Planet, and then his relationships with the Justice Gang, and leveraging all those to take on Lex's thing, because Lex never considers that Superman would rely on other people, because he doesn't rely on other people. And so the only way that Superman can beat it is by teaming up with everybody. It's really good plot. I think it's a really good story in this movie.
He also underestimates Superman. Lex defines it as brains versus brawn, whereas Superman eventually wins by using his own intelligence to overpower Lex's, in theory, stronger tool that he was using.
What did you think of the big twist where the final part of the message from Jor-El and Lara that he was sent to conquer?
I really thought it was a very clever way to have Superman really think about his mission. Because 3 years in as Superman, he needed something to bring him back to that basic level and have him question those ideals to make sure that the audience understood the ideals. I have no problem with Krypton being a nigh fascist state. And I don't think that was accidental messaging. I think there's a lot of things that adults can glean from this movie in the subtext that children won't and don't have to enjoy this movie thoroughly.
Again, that's the nature of art. It's as much political for you as you want it to be. I think it actually even makes more sense to have this literally Ubermensch society. Like, where would you send your child off into space? Oh, you're going to send him somewhere where he's going to be a god, where he can create the society anew. It's a culture that's not too far removed from ours to be absolutely believable.
I really liked the take on the Kents. They weren't farmer philosophers. They were ordinary people just trying to be good. Takes some of the teeth out of the stories that I remember, but I think it was a really good decision in the context of this movie, in the context of making a Superman I could believe.
Pa gives him the little speech, and then Ma's like, I cleaned your boots, and your suit's ready to go. And again, it was schmaltzy, and I knew it was schmaltzy as soon as Pa Kent sat down, but they delivered on it for me. As a dad, I just try and give you the tools, and you're going to make a fool of yourself, but you're also going to do your best. And again, just being so proud of our kids for just trying their absolute best and making their own choices. It's not up to us to tell us who they're going to be.
I really liked that. At the start of the film, Superman is injured in a fight and gets taken to the Fortress of Solitude. And his I love the robot slaves.
Robot helpers, robot assistants,
much better term.
robot butlers, robot Alfreds. My robot's name is Alfred also.
I loved the contrast. At the start of the movie, he gets taken to the Fortress of Solitude and his robots help him and give a little bit of backstory, point out that, he is comforted by visions of his parents. And at the start of the movie, it's his parents from Krypton, Jor-El and Lara. That was a test. But at the end of the movie, gets the same comfort by reliving the childhood that Tamarin Park Kent gave him, his dual childhood, his dual parents. That was really powerful and very moving.
There was a lot going on in this film. He did some really, really good thinking with.
Had a lot of masters to serve and did a lot of heavy lifting. It didn't get me on a deep thematic or intellectual level in the way that you were hoping for. Because we got the parts of Superman we haven't had for such a long time, that was all I was hoping for. That was exactly what I got. And the humor and the depth of characterization he was able to, sometimes just in a line or two of dialogue, was magnificent. I mean, a real triumph of trying to do too much, probably, but still pulling it off.
I was moved several times during the movie, and so for me, that's an absolute win. Let's talk about the worst scene in the movie. There are some couple clunky scenes where the exposition is very, very rough, the likes of which I've never seen in James Gunn's previous work. But this, when we talk about the worst scene of the movie, it's a scene that I really have to credit to one of my best friends, Nicola. She made the point that Superman will look after all life, even to saving the life of a tiny little squirrel. So why is it that when Superman is confronted with his own clone, doesn't do anything to save his own clone's life? It just rang a little rough for me that once Krypto took out the spears, he doesn't try and talk to him, negotiate with him in the same way that he tried to talk to the engineer and Ultraman earlier. He just killed him. Brutal. James Gunn and David Corenswet had created this absolutely amazing character, but this moment rang a little rough for me. Why didn't he try and save his clone? Would have been cool to have his little Bizarro clone hanging out in the Fortress of Solitude while Superman tries to rehabilitate him. So that is the 5 greatest scenes in Superman, and one scene that's not so great. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you loved it. If you did, please feel free to hit that like button. And if you want to join us for more of these videos, please hit that subscribe. Next up is Fantastic Four: First Steps. Super excited to do the 5 greatest scenes of that movie. Until then, look after yourself, and if you can, look after somebody else.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, mate. Good to do this in person for
I
once.
know, right?